Called it the North Star.
We are at the famous Frederick Douglass house. Watching a movie right now.
Yes, Papa?
The paper was named after the same star that guided thousands of slaves on their dangerous journey from the South in search of freedom.
Papa, it's Mrs. Tubman.
Harriet!
Some, like Harriet Tubman, risked their lives many times returning south to lead hundreds of people off the plantations.
Warm stove and sure a welcome sight.
The Douglas home and printing shop often served as a welcome station stop on the Underground Railroad.
I'm so honored, Mrs. Tubman. I've heard so much about you. Even in England, your work is known.
I'm just an old lady that loves doing a lot of walking in the great outdoors.
And she's found the bloodhounds, too.
One of Douglas's closest comrades in the struggle against slavery was a man named John Brown, a man who would lead the historic and daring raid on Harper's Ferry, West Virginia.
Seize the town?
First, we'll capture the Orleans. Then we'll hold the leading citizens hostage until the slaves are freed.
John, you know I have supported and will continue to support you in all of your other efforts. But my dear friend, this scheme is doomed to failure. This is the wrong place. This is suicide, John.
Whether we live or die,
Famous artifacts.
this deed must be done. Shields, for the love of God.
Mr. Douglas, I believe I'll go with the old man.
Both men were right. The raid on Harper's Ferry sent shockwaves throughout the nation. But as Douglas had predicted, it cost John Brown his life. The Civil War came. The peculiar institution of slavery had split our country apart. North against South, brother against brother, dividing families in one of the bloodiest conflicts in mankind's history. Douglas recruited black soldiers, worked tirelessly for the Union cause, and vigorously supported President Abraham Lincoln, though he was not always in agreement with the president's policies.
Mr. President, the Negro soldier is willing to fight and die in this great war. But he must receive some sign from this administration that he simply isn't exchanging one form of oppression for another.
Mr. Douglas, if this administration goes too far, we will bring down upon ourselves all of the hatred that is felt toward the Negro. This would greatly hinder our ability to successfully conclude this war, for we, both of us, have much to gain in this regard.
Eventually, the Union was preserved, and most importantly, the chains of slavery were at long last cut from the arms and legs of millions of African Americans. But unfortunately, the end of slavery, emancipation, did not mean the end of oppression, hatred, and violence.
But Papa, President Johnson said...
Rosanna, I fear Andrew Johnson is no friend.
These are pictures.
Frederick, you mean we've been suffering all these trials for all these years for nothing?
Without the vote, liberty's a mockery. The Negro will no longer be a slave to an individual master. He will be a slave to society at the mercy of the mob.
Though the Douglas home in Rochester was burned to the
It is
ground,
the spirit of
the
hate,
family escaped unharmed.
spirit of murder, spirit that would burn a family in their beds. But one thing I know, and that is There is no middle ground for us. We must either have all the rights of American citizens, or we must be exterminated. For we shall never again be slaves.
President Hayes appointed Douglas U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia. He and his family moved to Washington. In 1877, he purchased a new home. He called it Cedar Hill.
Do you like that?
Maybe it might turn gray.
Well, President Hayes wouldn't have the United States Marshal for the District of Columbia living in a log cabin.
Mr. Lincoln lived in a log cabin.
In 1882, Anna Marie Douglas died after a long illness.
Fred, you must be terribly lonely now with Anna gone.
Harriet, Anna was the anchor of my life for 40 years. But I have Rosetta, Charles, Louis, Fred, and I have my work.
I hope this is hot enough for you.
Thank you, President.
This is the Frederick Douglass Library. Hey, how you doing? This is one of the workers here. I ain't tried to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm doing a school project. trying to talk. This is the famous statue of Frederick Douglass. I know how to turn my camera around, so I can show myself.
Yes, it's. Yes.
Oh, okay. With the bed and all that stuff? Oh, okay. I hadn't been on this since I was a little boy.
timeline of Frederick Douglass's life. Purchases freedom. 1846. 1845 sails to England to avoid capture. Wrote his first book in 1845. Here's the book. Publishes the North Star newspaper. Written by him. Joins the cause for women's rights in 1848. 1863, the year of the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah, I got the statue. Sculpture. The death mask. Douglas.